Hi, my name is Kerry Goulder from Kid Giddy, and I'm going to show you how to make the Kid Giddy doll using Sizzix dies. Your doll can be made however you want. There's a lot of different accessories on the die so that you can personalize the doll that you want. You're going to need some fabric. I like to use bamboo rayon blend felt or wool felt for the hair and accessory pieces, and I also like to use quilter's cotton for the doll body. Embroidery floss for the eyes. And you'll need some washable glue for basting the accessory pieces. If you have a fine tip for it, that would be really helpful as well. So I'm placing pieces on my die. I want to make sure that I have a certain number of pieces for each part of the doll. We need 4 pieces for the legs, 4 pieces for the arms. And you want to make sure that you've got enough fabric so that you don't cut your fabric wrong. So it's okay that they overlap. Just remember that you can have up to 8 pieces of fabric on your die. 2 pieces for the head. Again, I want to make sure this is the edge of the fabric. I want to make sure that that piece is far enough over the top of the head. On this pass, I'm also going to cut the glasses because I can see the piece, and I want to make sure when I use small pieces that it fits on the die properly so that you get a clean cut. Sometimes that may be your only piece and you want to make sure that you're going to cut it properly the first time. So I'm just going to run these pieces through, then I'm going to run the other pieces through that I need. This is an XL25 die cut, so you'll need the XL25 die cutting pads as well. Because of the width, this die cut will fit through the Fabby, the Big Shot, and the Big Kick. You want to gently take off all your excess pieces, and if you have little threads that are attached, go ahead and cut them off. Don't pull on them so that you don't pull your fabric. I've cut out all the pieces for the doll except for the heart. So I want to show you a little trick. If you need to cut a piece of one of the accessories that's on the end of the die, or you just want to cut the hair, you can use a small cutting pad placed at the end of the die and then run through the machine. If it's the center, you'll still have to use the large cutting pad. This will help save your cutting pads a little bit of work when you're cutting out these accessory pieces, because sometimes you need to run the die through quite a few times for the different accessories that we have on here. So now I've got my heart and we're ready to get sewing. I'm going to start by sewing the arms and legs right sides together. And when I do, I'm going to make sure that I backstitch when I start and when I finish on the other end. This is going to be a 1/4 inch seam allowance. When you get close to the curves, you want to make sure that your needle is down. This will help you as you're pivoting the fabric to keep the stitch in place. You can go a few stitches, pick up your foot ever so slightly, and then pivot your fabric. When it's a large curve, you can push your fabric around the edge until the curve gets tighter again. Then you'll want to slow down and keep pivoting your fabric. Once you're done with the curves, go ahead and straighten out your fabric so you can sew your last straight stitch. Make sure you backstitch at the end so it doesn't come apart. Now we want to clip and notch our curves. Outward curves should be notched with little triangles. Inward curves should be clipped. You want to make sure that you leave at least 3 threads away from your seam so that you don't clip your seam and so that it doesn't come apart over time. So now that I've clipped and notched the leg, I'm going to turn it right side out. So you want to use your turning tubes or quick turn tubes. It does all the work for you. pops out, it's like magic. You want to just push out all your curves gently. You want to make sure you don't poke through your fabric. I'm going to use a stuffing fork to stuff the legs and the arms. There's two little tines on the bottom of the stuffing fork that help to poke the stuffing into the foot or into the hand and thumb. It makes it a lot easier and quicker. Some people start with very, very little amounts of stuffing and just keep adding more, but I like to start with some larger pieces and just place them where I want. So go ahead and keep stuffing all your legs and all your arms. Now that I've stuffed the arms and the legs, I wanted to show you that you'll need to stitch the legs closed. To do this, you want to make sure that the front seam and the back seam are lined up. This way, the feet will lay center in the front of the doll. Now we're going to move on to the face, and we're going to sew the glasses on first. I prefer to have the glasses behind the hair, but if you want to have the glasses over the hair, you can do that as well. You may not even want to put hair on your doll, or you may want to do a different shape, and it won't matter either way. To do that, you'll need your glue, and you want to put a very small amount of glue along the glasses, and then you'll want to carefully flip the glasses over and put them in place. You want to try not to move them around too much because they will get distorted, and then you want to press it in place with your iron. When you do, you want to make sure that you flip it over and press on the fabric side, not the felt side. So now that the glasses are pressed, we're going to stitch the glasses on. You want to do this slowly so that you can line up your stitches along all the curves and the different areas of the glasses. I really like to stitch the whole top rim of the glasses and then go back and stitch the bottom rim of the glasses. They're very thin, but you want to make sure that you stitch right through the center of the lines. Now that I've sewn the glasses on, I want to sew on the hair. To do that, I need to first decide what kind of hair shape I want. Your die has a couple of different options for you, but you can really make up your own. Because this is a dark fabric, I'm going to use a piece of chalk. There is tailor's chalk, but this is all I have for right now, and that might be all you have as well. So I'm just going to lightly draw the hairline I want in the front. Then I'm going to cut it. Once you place the hair, just take a look at it. If something looks wrong, you can still make adjustments. I'm going to cut a little bit more off of this side because I don't want it too much thicker than this other side here. I think that looks better. Now we're going to cut the piece for the back. The back of the neck is really going to start somewhere around here. So that's about 3/4 to 1 inch up from this bottom seam. So when we make our mark on the back, you want to make a nice curve along the bottom edge. Before I cut it though, I'm going to fold it in half and I'm going to cut it all at once. That way I'll know that it's going to be the same on both sides. It may look like this hairline is too far up, but when you sew the doll together, you'll notice that a lot of this seam allowance is going to go away. So in the end, it won't be as high up as it looks. Now we're going to glue baste the hair pieces, and then we're going to stitch them in place just like we did with the glasses. You'll want to do this for any accessory pieces that you have as well. All she's going to have on is the heart, but I want to show you a couple other things that you can do instead. So on the die, there's a couple different accessories. There's the pocket, there's a little circle which can be used as buttons or as eyes or as cheeks. There's also a tie, but the bow can also be used as a bow tie. So there's a lot of different options here to play with. So for this one, you could do a little belt in the front, but you want to make sure that you put a little piece on the back. These are just little strips that I have extra from other projects. You want to make sure that they're lined up and they're the same distance away from each other. This way, the two seams will match up when you put the two pieces together. You would stitch this on first, and then you can place your bow and then stitch the bow on. And it makes a really cute little belt detail on a little girl doll. You can also just add a belt for a boy and add a little extra piece on top here. and put a little buckle as well. So now I've finished sewing the front of the head, the back of the head, and the 2 ponytails. There's a ponytail shape on the die already. You could do 1 ponytail or you can do 2 ponytails. For this little girl, she likes pigtails. We're going to place them on the outside edge, and you want to flip it over to determine where you've placed it and if that's the right place you want to have the ponytails. I want them to come down a little bit further, so I'm going to place them a little further on the side. Then I'm going to pin it in place. I'm going to cut the front away from the back, and I'm going to pin the other side. Now I want to make sure that the 2 ponytails are symmetrical from each other, because you don't really want a ponytail up here and a ponytail out here. The best way to do that is to fold the head in half and line them up. Now I know that my ponytails are in the same spot. Now I can pin this other one in place. Now I'm going to pin the 2 sides of the heads together. And I want to pin them right sides together, but I want to make sure that the ponytails are out of the way because we don't want to stitch them into the seam. So I place the back of the head right down on top of the front of the head and pin that in place. Then we're going to sew from one corner of the neck up around the head down to the other corner of the neck. You want to make sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. I've made sure to leave the neck open. Now you want to clip in the corners of the neck so that it doesn't stretch too tight once it's turned inside out. Then you want to notch all the way around the edge. I like to go one way and then turn it and start clipping the opposite way. So you want to have little triangles all the way around your doll head. Now that I've clipped and notched all the way around the head, I want to turn it inside out. I'm going to do so carefully so that I don't pull or rip the neck opening. Pull the ponytails out one by one really carefully. You don't want to actually pull on the ponytail itself because you don't want that to rip either. And then I'm going to start turning it from the bottom, from the neck. Once you have her pieces out, we're just going to poke all the way around the seam just to give her head some shape. And then we're going to attach the arms. The arms will attach to the neck seam. You want to make sure that the doll face is upright and that the thumb is upright as well. This will make sure that when she's turned right side out, her thumb will still be pointing in the right direction and it won't be facing backwards. Line up the seam on the neck of the doll to the center of the arms. Pin the 2 edges of the arm, because this way, if you just put one pin in, it'll still move around a lot while you're trying to stitch it in place. So go ahead and stitch it in place and make sure you don't stitch the ponytails with it. When you're done sewing this arm in place, sew the other arm in place as well. So now that the arms are attached to the head, you want to sew the body on both sides, leaving the top and the bottom open. Make sure that you clip in the little corners where the head is going to attach to the body. This is the neck, and you want to make sure that it's going to give properly. So to attach the head to the body, you want to make sure that the body front is upright and so is the head. So the face is pointing upwards and you can see the little heart detail on the front of the body. We're going to place the head inside. We want to line up the neck on the head to the neck on the body. You want to pull out the neck a little bit more so that you can see it easier. Here's one of my arms and here's the side seam of the dress. You want to make sure that the side seam of the dress lines up to the side seam of the head. So even though the arm is there in place and it's covering that seam, you want to eyeball it and make sure they're lined up. Once they are, pin it in place. Now we're going to repeat that on the other side. You want to make sure that you also pin the front and the back in the center. This will make sure that your neck stays aligned with the top of the dress so that you get proper seam allowance all the way around. Before you sew the seam around the neck with the sewing machine, you may want to baste it. It will make it a little bit easier for you to sew it without all the pins in there. I'm going to go ahead and sew this now with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now that we've finished the neck, we're putting the legs in place so that we can sew them to the body. We're putting them at the bottom, right in the center, but maybe about 1/4 inch away from the center mark on each one. So you want to sew them and make sure that the feet are pointed onto the back. So you'll see the front side of the doll here, but the feet are actually pointing towards the back. Now that the legs are attached, we're going to turn the doll inside out, and this is when she starts coming to life. You just want to keep rolling the fabric down and making sure that you don't pull on the side seams too much. There she is. Okay, so now it's time to stuff her. I like using the stuffing fork for this part, but sometimes when it's a bigger portion, you don't necessarily need it until you want to put certain pieces of stuffing in certain places. When you're done stuffing your doll and you're happy with the firmness of it, go ahead and close the bottom of the doll using a ladder stitch. I prefer to pin it in place because, as you can see, it wiggles out of place very easily because the polyfill is kind of slippery. In a couple of spots so that it doesn't move around. If you don't want to hand sew this, you can sew a seam straight across on your sewing machine. When you're finished sewing the doll, you need to decide on what kind of eyes you want to give her. Because this is most likely going to be for a child that I will give this to, I want to use embroidery floss. You can choose whatever color you want, and it comes in a lot of colors. If you want to use beads, that's okay too. Maybe even buttons. It's totally up to you. For this boy doll, I gave him a tie, I gave him a pocket, put a little handkerchief in there because it's all in the details. And then I used a little piece of felt for a waistband that goes also around the back. And I separated the bottom of his body from the top so that it looks like his pants go up a little higher than just his legs. I want to show you a couple different ways that you can do sleeves and legs on the dolls. Say I wanted to make sleeves for the doll, I would sew together a piece of skin color fabric with a piece of the same material that is used on his body. This seam, you can tell, is sewn directly. So this is one way that you can do it. I've already sewn it. Now I would fold it over. You want to line up your seams before putting it on your die cut. And then you want to run this through the die cut. Then you can stitch it closed, and now your doll has a little sleeve. Another way that you can do your sleeve is to sew the sleeves separate. And what you do is you actually just top stitch the fabric under a little bit, place it on your arm, set it aside. You do your other one, place it on the arm, the opposite side of the arm actually. And then what you do is you want to flip one side over on top of the other. Line them up and make sure that your little sleeve pieces are also lined up. Pin them in place so they don't move around too much, or you can glue baste them and then stitch them in place. This will give the illusion that the sleeves are not attached to the body and are actually separate from the arm. The last way to do it is to sew the two pieces together first. So I've top stitched the sleeves and sewn them together. I actually serged this. If you don't have a serger, that's okay. You can use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. Then you want to turn that right side out. You can do this with the pants as well, not just the arms. And then you want to place the arm through the sleeve and make sure that the top edges are lined up. Because you don't want this to shift around before you attach it to the neck, I would sew these two pieces together and stitch the whole arm closed with the sleeve on. Like I said, you can do that with the foot as well. As you can see, there's lots of different ways that you can personalize your own Kid Giddy doll. I hope you have fun making one for yourself or for someone special and giving it away.